Ellen told the world she was kind, but Ricky Gervais has been telling a very different story. According to him, Ellen wasn't the person she appeared to be behind the scenes. Some have even speculated that she may have had connections to none other than Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime associate. While Ricky hinted at this years ago, recent online discussions have fueled renewed speculation about Ellen's alleged ties to Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was known to have extensive connections within American media, particularly the entertainment industry, leading many people to question whether Ellen may have crossed paths with her.
She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did. She was vicious, she was evil, and she was a woman.
Her lawyers have said Ghislaine Maxwell is not a Jeffrey Epstein, that she has been a victim of media spin.
They're doing their job, but I know that woman. I've known her really well. Put it this way, Epstein was Pinocchio and she was Geppetto. She was the guy controlling
the strings.
Jeffrey. Yep, she was pulling the strings. She had his money, he had her contacts, but Ghislaine was much more conniving and smart than Epstein ever was.
We know that Ellen's name appears in the broader collection of Epstein-related documents, which include hundreds of public figures. Over the past year, viral videos and social media posts have claimed that her name appears dozens or even hundreds of times in those documents. However, many of these claims remain unverified. One reason Ellen continues to be pulled into these online discussions is something surprisingly ordinary: pizza. If you've spent any time in conspiracy-focused corners of the internet, you've probably seen people trying to connect pizza references to hidden meanings. Those theories have circulated online for years, and some users believe they support broader claims, although no credible evidence has confirmed those interpretations.
The babies, the code words in the emails, literal emails of Epstein and Bill Gates, like these are known entities starting to talk about jerky. And then they're talking about the intestines of babies. They're talking about cream cheese. Like, I welcome anyone to prove me wrong, because I hoped to fucking hell this is not true. But when we mentioned jerky, that was the more elite meat is what I'm interpreting this as. There were emails from people, redacted names again, saying, hey, I have 68 pounds of jerky in my freezer. I'm not sure what to do with it. There were emails of, I need more jerky. I'm going to send it to the lab. When he knew they were coming after him, they knew they were going to come arrest him. He ordered 330 gallons of sulfuric acid, which is which is how you would dispose of babies. And there are mentions, and now Congress is actually speaking about it. They did this week, spoke about Zora Ranch and how there's so many mentions of bury them in Zora Ranch, leave them in Zora Ranch. And now that's 7,000 acres of land that Jeffrey Epstein owns in New Mexico. And it's actively working right now. And then just to add to that, the chef that was making the jerky, that was sending recipes, that was on the island, was Francis Derby.
Who's that?
Francis Derby owns the restaurant Cannibal.
What?
Yes.
Wait, there's a restaurant called Cannibal?
Cannibal and Cooking.
Is it actual? No, it can't be. That'd be illegal. It can't be,
right?
Down.
But is it so tongue-in-cheek? Did they think they were so fucking smart that they could go that far?
Even so, internet detectives began revisiting old clips from the Ellen DeGeneres show through that lens. One moment that frequently gets mentioned involves a child guest who claimed he witnessed Ellen doing something that made absolutely no sense. According to the story, he said Ellen ate an entire rotisserie chicken in one gulp, a bizarre claim that has continued circulating online, despite the lack of evidence supporting it.
We've been hearing a lot of scary about Ellen DeGeneres since the pandemic hit. And anytime somebody mentions her name as something that sounds like a conspiracy, most likely people are going to believe it. So a man is claiming that when he was a kid, he was a guest on Ellen DeGeneres' show. And while he was there, he seen her do some unhuman, scary shit. So this man was a child prodigy chess player. He was a guest on Ellen DeGeneres' show. He said he did the show and everything went well. But when he got off set, he seen something that he never thought he would ever see in his life. He said he came off set, looked to his right, and saw that Ellen DeGeneres' dressing room was cracked open just a little bit. He saw her in there, and what he saw scared him for the rest of his life. He said Ellen was eating a chicken, a rotisserie chicken. But it wasn't that she was eating a chicken, it was how she was eating the chicken. He said he saw Ellen DeGeneres dislocate her whole jaw, open her mouth as wide as it can go, and stuff the whole chicken in her mouth. You heard what I just said? This man said he saw Ellen DeGeneres open her mouth as wide as she can, dislocate her jaw, and stuff a rotisserie chicken in her mouth and swallowed it. One gulp. Then she looked at him and she made a hissing sound. You know what that means, right? Of course, after seeing that, he had to be scared. He ran to his dressing room, told his mother, and his mother didn't believe him. Sound crazy.
The rumors suggest there was far more happening behind the scenes on Ellen's show and in her personal life than the public ever knew. We've discussed many of those claims in previous videos, but what exactly was Ellen's relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell? We do know that Ghislaine had connections to influential figures in both American and British media, thanks in part to her father, Robert Maxwell, the powerful British media owner. Those connections gave her access to many of the world's most influential people.
If you grew up in the US, you were about to question your entire worldview. It turns out that the founder of McGraw-Hill is Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. If you forgot about McGraw-Hill, well, it's the company that produced all of your textbooks from elementary through high school. Maxwell's goal with McGraw-Hill was to dominate the entire US education market, which they did. But what you should know is that Maxwell was infamous for sneaking Israeli spy software into governments and financial institutions around the world. Most notably, he allegedly had snuck the software called PRISM into Los Alamos, where the US was developing the nuclear bomb. The British government believed that Robert was part of Mossad and had him classified as a double, if not triple agent. Robert Maxwell also owned a massive publication called the Daily Mirror, which had direct ties to the Israeli government. They even ratted out one of the informants to the Israeli government, which ultimately had that individual kidnapped, taken to Israel, and imprisoned for 18 years. We all know that Robert's daughter, Ghislaine, is sitting in prison right now for one of the most horrific operations in human history. And Robert also pulled off one of the biggest corporate frauds ever recorded in history. He had stolen almost $500 million in his employees' pension funds to maintain political power and fund his businesses, which collapsed after he died. I'm gonna wrap this video by reminding you once more, he was the owner of McGraw-Hill, the textbooks that you and I learned everything about the world from.
Which is how, mainly how Ghislaine got so enmeshed in New York society and also, teamed up with Epstein in that same period of time. So, all of this matters, and these connections are significant because this baton passing shows that this is a generational thing. And in the case of Maxwell, Robert Maxwell's children, at least the ones that were close to him, because you have two that sort of splintered off from the larger Maxwell clan, but are very open that, after he died, they were trying to figure out how to rebuild his empire and using his Rolodex of contacts to rebuild that. And they did it in doing so. You have Ian and Kevin doing all this interesting financial stuff after, their father's death. And then the twins, Isabel and Christine, make this search engine company and get involved with Microsoft and Bill Gates and all this stuff back in the 90s. And Ghislaine Maxwell was reportedly involved in that too, and then also very involved with Epstein and all sorts of other things, and eventually becomes one of the main people at the UN developing sustainable development policy for the world's oceans.
While there is no direct evidence that Ellen and Ghislaine Maxwell worked together, they were part of many of the same elite social circles. Ghislaine was closely associated with figures such as Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein, while Ellen was known to have relationships with people including Harvey Weinstein, Sean Diddy Combs, and members of the Bush family. Because of that overlap, some online commentators have drawn comparisons between their networks. Some have even argued that Ellen and Epstein operated in similar ways, as though they were following the same playbook. Supporters of that theory often point to Anne Heche, Ellen's former girlfriend, claiming she was beginning to speak publicly about Ellen before her death. However, these claims remain the subject of online speculation and have not been substantiated by credible evidence.
Anne Heche explained how she was silenced by Ellen DeGeneres. Right before Anne Heche passed away, after 20 years, she finally started exposing the truth about what happened between her and Ellen. In the early 2000s, on the same day that Ellen and Anne broke up, it was reported all over the news stations that Anne had a nervous breakdown and she was actually hospitalized. And finally, after 20 years, Anne Heche said in this interview that Ellen was trying to silence her and she was actually the one that put her into the mental institution. She also explained how Ellen had her blackballed from Hollywood and pretty much ruined her career. And a lot of people found it really suspicious that Anne Heche started talking about a and how when you catch wind of it, you basically have to separate yourself, and how basically that we've all been lied to for years. And Anne Heche actually did 2 interviews on Ellen, and each time they were getting deeper and deeper, and she was revealing more and more information. And a lot of people thought that Anne Heche was actually getting ready to expose Ellen for being involved in trafficking. And honestly, this doesn't surprise me because who Ellen surrounds herself with, but even Oprah was brought up in this interview with Anne Heche. They talked about how Oprah actually cut Anne Heche out of the 20th year anniversary celebration of Ellen coming out when Anne Heche was actually in here with Ellen, because Anne Heche is the one that started Ellen's coming out journey.